After 18 days of marathon negotiations, and Iran and 6 world powers, led by the U.S., announced a historic nuclear deal to limit Iran's nuclear capability in exchange for lifting international sanctions. Reactions to the accord pour in from the U.S. Congress to the UAE, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it a historic mistake that makes the world much more dangerous and that Israel is not bound by it. And something else, the Greek government submits tough bailout terms demanded by Europe to Parliament as the country's Syriza party debates the reforms promised in a massive bailout deal.
The News Today with Lucy Aharish.
Good evening and welcome to the news today. After 18 days of marathon negotiations and 2 years more of work, today was the day Iran and 6 world powers of the P5+1 announced a historic nuclear agreement aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear program. In a televised address, U.S. President Barack Obama praised the deal and said no deal means a greater chance of more war in the Middle East. Critics call it a historic mistake and a catastrophe for the West, with some stressing that it actually sidelines the numerous immediate crises in the region. With me tonight is Iranian politics analyst Meir Javed Anvar. Good evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Udi Zomer, Associate Professor of Political Science at the Tel Aviv University. Good evening.
Good evening.
And also Avi Melamed, Head of the International Middle East Affairs at the Eisenhower Institute. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. So before we will start discussing what is exactly the deal that we're talking about, Shai Ben-Ari breaks down some of the bottom lines of the deal.
Today is an historic day.
Today is a historic day.
The deal reached by the P5+1 countries in Iran, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, amounts to 159 pages, including annexes. Here are some of its main points. The text of the deal states that Iran will be able to enrich uranium, but only to a level of up to 3.67%, with this limit in place for 15 years. Iran will be permitted to keep a stockpile of no more than 300 kilograms of this low-enrichment uranium, not enough for a nuclear bomb. All higher-grade enriched uranium will either be fabricated into fuel plates, transferred out of Iran, or diluted to a level of 3.67% or less. Nuclear facilities at Fordow and Arak will undergo redesign and reconstruction under Western supervision. Iran will maintain no more than 5,060 active IR-1 centrifuges for a period of 10 years under the agreement, but will be able to conduct research and development on more advanced centrifuges, some of them up to 16 times as productive as the IR-1. This means Iran could significantly enhance its enrichment capabilities after 10 years.
It was the resistance of our people and their opposition that brought the other side to the negotiating table in the best way.
One of the issues which has concerned Iran's enemies the most is the matter of inspections of its nuclear facilities. Under the agreement, Iran will allow IAEA inspectors regular access, including daily visits per request, to its known enrichment facilities. In the case of IAEA concern over undeclared nuclear materials or activities, Iran is given a chance to offer an alternative to an actual visit by inspectors. Iran may propose to the IAEA alternative means of resolving the IAEA's concerns that enable the IAEA to verify the absence of undeclared nuclear materials and activities. If the IAEA concerns are not resolved immediately, a period of 14 days is given to reach an agreed solution. If none is reached, an additional 7 days are given to allow a joint commission, including representatives of Iran, Russia, and China, to decide the means to resolve the dispute. 3 more days are then allowed for Iran to implement the means. This means overall 24 days can pass between an IAEA complaint over undeclared materials and a response by Iran.
Iran must complete key nuclear steps before it begins to receive new sanctions relief.
Concerning sanctions, the deal states that Iran's implementation of large sections of the deal will coincide simultaneously with the removal of a range of EU, US, and UN sanctions. This point could prove problematic, as these activities do not necessarily take the same amount of time, meaning simultaneous action could be open to interpretation.
Over the course of the next decade, Iran must abide by the deal before additional sanctions are lifted. including 5 years for restrictions related to arms and 8 years for restrictions related to ballistic missiles. All of this will be memorialized and endorsed in a new United Nations Security Council resolution. And if Iran violates the deal, all these sanctions will snap back into place.
Iran agreed to fully implement a roadmap for clarification of past and present outstanding issues relating to its nuclear program, a sticking point in the later stages of negotiations. Still, there are those who remain unconvinced.
Israel is not bound by this deal with Iran because Iran continues to seek our destruction. We will always defend ourselves.
Yes, and I'm back here with the gentlemen that are going to accompany me in this special edition, and let's try to understand who wins from this deal, who loses. You know, some will say that Iran is the big winner. Some will say that the United States is the big winner. But it seems that this week, the big winner is Europe. Because Europe is pushing, Europe pushed in Greece, Europe pushed in this specific issue, and it seems that the European maintained to keep a really good deal for everyone. Mayor.
Well, it really depends how you look at it. I mean, in terms of, let's just think about it, the IRGC, a number of very senior Revolutionary Guard people said that the United States or foreign powers or the IAEA would never, ever, under any circumstances, be allowed to inspect Iran's military sites. Now, we heard that there's a mechanism of visiting those sites. It involves Iran, but they would be able to theoretically visit those sites. The Iranian regime said that it would, for example, the issue of the research and development. Yes, they'll be able to do research and development. But for 15 years, they will not be able to use that development to make weapon. Why? Because the 300 kilogram that will stay in Iran of low-enriched uranium will not be enough to make a nuclear weapon. So on the one hand, the IRGC have had to give, the Iranian hardliners have had to give up some things. On the other hand, you know, the Americans have had to give up something. Everybody has had to give up something to get to where we are today. Because that's basically negotiations. And I have to say, I disagree with the Prime Minister Netanyahu and his whole approach to all this. As much as I don't want the Iranian regime to have nuclear weapons, much like the entire state of Israel, his approach has been that we want something, we want everything, for nothing, basically. Iran has to give up everything else. And if Iran wants to negotiate, then it's a Persian bazaar people. It doesn't work that way. You know, everybody wants to negotiate. And I think there's no such thing as a perfect deal. I think there's room for some optimism that this deal could work. However, the only thing that can judge it will be time.
Avi, are the concerns of Israel real? Is this deal really that bad like Israel thinks?
I wouldn't put it this way, but let us remember something very important. Iran right now is involved in major scenes in the Middle East. It involves, practically speaking, right now there are Iranian soldiers fighting in Syrian soil and getting killed there. There are Iranian soldiers fighting in Iraq. They are supporting the Houthi in Yemen. They are supporting Hezbollah. They are supporting Islamic Jihad, to a lesser extent Hamas. The threat that Iran presents to Israel is a serious one. We have to remember that in the last generation, 99% of these military challenges Israel has been facing is basically, in the end of the day, launched by proxies of the Iranian regime. And by the way, the Iranian regime is not only gladly sacrificing Israelis in the last generation, he's sacrificing gladly Palestinians, he's gladly sacrificing Lebanese, Syrians, Iraqis, Yemenites. If I conclude on this specific point, I would say something about that, basically reflecting some a Saudi colleague analyst that basically says Iran today openly say its control for Arab capitals, Beirut, Damascus, Baghdad, and Sana'a. It's occupying islands in the Gulf, refusing to negotiate these islands. It's threatening to block the Hormuz. It's threatening to block the Bab el-Mandab. And this is under sections without nuclear military capacity.
And we haven't started thinking about the nuclear military capacity. And what are we talking about with the missiles and other aspect of this deal? But I want to go to someone who's been in Vienna for the last 20 days. And I think that she's really 18, 20 days. And I think that she's really, really homesick. But who stopped? You know, they're correcting me 18 days, 20 days. You stopped counting after 2 weeks, I think. So, Eli, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been a really emotional day, a really big day, a really historic day. And I think that all the sides, if we're seeing the photo up, are satisfied with the deal. Okay, we cannot hear her. No, we cannot hear Eli yet. I think.
Lost her voice after 20
days. I think that after 20 days, she's looking for her voice in Vienna. Maybe too much schnitzel, or Apfelstrudel. But let's talk about the United States for a second. Let's talk about Barack Obama doing this big deal. Just months before he's leaving office, just months before everyone talked about the fact that Barack Obama is a failed president. Barack Obama is not managing to control the Middle East. Barack Obama is the president that managed to destroy each and every relationship that the United States has with the Middle East. Comes Barack Obama with this big deal and says, you know what, that's it. I'm putting an end to all the saga, and I'm doing the biggest deal in the history of the world.
Yeah, well, you asked about who's the big winner. So at least in the short run, we don't know what's going to happen 10 years, 15 years down the road, right? History will judge whether he is still a big winner then. But at least in the short run, it seems like Barack Obama is able to get the signature achievement in foreign policy that he was seeking for so long. But we have to remember that he's doing that his own way. So if you remember, he won the Peace Nobel Prize about a month after he assumed office. Okay, so I mean, he won it later on in 2009, right? But he was announced a month after he assumed office, and the reason why he won that was because of his approach to international relations. And the idea was to form coalitions, to use diplomacy with a potential threat of a military action, but ideally without using military action.
And what a better way to justify your Nobel Prize by signing a deal with Iran.
Exactly, using those means.
So let's go back to Eli Ochenberg. Eli Ochenberg, are you still with us? Can you hear me now?
Yes, for 18 days I was, and I still am. Our equipment might be a bit tired, though.
So how are you? I think that after 18 days, 20 days, however time you are there, I think that everyone are satisfied, even the reporters, that they're finally coming back home.
Well, I wanted to start this report with a joke to tell you that the teams here are making some serious progress, but we lost connection, so it ruined my joke. But yes, this is it. It's all over. They have a deal. I'm glad you liked it. And it really was, there was this sense of almost a graduation day here today. The logistics teams, the journalists, of course, the delegations, they were all very much excited, after long 22 months of negotiations, and especially the last couple of weeks here in Vienna of hectic negotiations, many hurdles, really the nuclear roller coaster. And today it is finally done. We have a deal. It's only the beginning of this agreement. There are still many challenges ahead, whether it's the U.S. Congress or the Iranian Parliament. But this phase is complete, the most crucial phase. We have a deal, and it seems that all sides are very satisfied. They said today, as you know, it's not just a deal, but a good deal, the best possible deal they could have achieved. And this atmosphere, this positive atmosphere, definitely is surrounding Vienna today.
Eli, I want to take you back to our conversations that we had during these last 18 days. And you've been talking a lot about the fact that there is no Israeli media there. The Israeli media just arrived there only 2 days ago. The Israeli media, basically Israel was not on the table. Not only that Israel was not on the table, only the Iranian media was present in these talks. So what was the reaction of the Iranian media today in the middle of the night when you SMS'd me and you told me, Lucy, we are probably going to see an announcement at 5 a.m. in the morning? I'm not going to catch you up on that, but what was their reaction?
Well, yes, I think that at the end of the day, the lack of Israeli media here symbolizes the lack of Israeli influence, and we've been talking about it in the course of the last couple of weeks. And you know, during this time, the Iranian journalists got to know us a bit. I think that at the beginning they were a bit afraid. They didn't know really how to digest us. But again, I've been talking to you about it, the differences between the Iranian journalists who are based in Tehran or in other areas in Iran, or the ones who live abroad, whether it's the US or Europe. There's a tremendous difference. The one who lives abroad, whether it's because a self-imposed exile or a forced exile, are much more open, much more communicative, and the ones who are still in Iran are a bit are more hesitated. But I can definitely say that they are very curious about the Israelis. Some of them shared with us our thoughts, and we've been saying that again in the last 18 days that they feel there is this even shared destiny between the Iranian people and the Israeli people. Others are, again, a bit more restrained, but there's great curiosity, and if this agreement will indeed open up Iran to the West, we can definitely expect a sense of closeness between the greatest enemies, Iran and Israel. Maybe they will not be such great enemies anymore, maybe even, God forbid, friends.
God forbid, friends. Eli Ochenberg, thank you very, very much. Of course, you will continue updating, and you better come back with a huge chunk of chocolate. Thank you very much for this.
Highly enriched Austrian chocolate. In special centrifuge.
You know, I want to understand, is it a possible scenario that Israel might find itself cooperating or being friends with, I know that you wish, but
no, it's not a question of wish. We've tried, Lucy, we've tried. You know, Iran, Khomeini came to power in '79. We sold them weapons to fight the Iraqis. They gave the weapons that we gave them to Hezbollah to kill our soldiers. For 14 years, they called for the elimination of the State of Israel. Israel did not say a word. We started saying all options are on the table at the beginning of the 90s. Please show me which other country in the world would sit quietly while another regime called for its elimination. In 1996, Netanyahu tried to reach out to the Iranians. We sent an agriculture delegation in 1999. We sent a reconstruction delegation in 2006 using Dutch laissez-passer. The Iranians knew exactly where these people came from. No, they've also done, for example, according to Yediot Ahronot, there was a minister of Iran came in 2000 to stay at one of the hotels on the Hilton, according to Yediot Ahronot. We've tried, we've bent over backwards. The governments, various governments have been interested, but the regime is not. Ayatollah Khamenei doesn't want better relations between Iran and Israel.
Why I'm saying this, because this attitude, this specific attitude of Iran, we don't want, we are not willing, this is basically what played exactly into the hands of Israel. If Israel will see the opportunity to actually cooperate with somebody else in the region, to cooperate with Saudi Arabia, to cooperate with Gulf countries, and this can actually maybe work out for the benefit of Israel, if it will happen.
We have to remember that Israel is a great card used very skillfully by the Iranians, by the Iranian regime, sort of speaking. Israel doesn't have a conflict with the Iranian people. The Iranian regime ideologically is really hostile towards Israel, yet I'm always saying about this regime, this is a very extreme, dangerous regime, but it's not suicidal. He's using others to detonate themselves in his service. He's not doing that itself. He will not become a friend of the State of Israel, but he's definitely tuned to interests. The name of the game is interest, and the most important interest to this regime is the endurance of this regime. And I want to make a side note in that context, two things. One, in the context of Obama. Today what we saw was the stamping of the Obama legacy. Now the open question is, what kind of a legacy would it be? Would Obama be recorded in history as the one who can walk away and finally feel comfortable with the Nobel Prize he won? Or could he go away and be registered in history as the Neville Chamberlain of the 21st century? We don't know yet.
Udi Zomer?
Well, I think that we talk about different alliances here, right? And I think there's, apart from the hypothetical or theoretical alliance between Israel and Iran, there are two very important alliances here. One is between the United States and Iran, and the other one between Israel and the United States. So as far as the United States-Iranian relations are concerned, this deal was specifically very focused on the nuclear program. But beyond that, the interests of America and the energy-independent America in the Middle East are very different today, and Iran as an island of stability is something that the United States is building some of its future fortunes on, especially in its fight against the jihadists in the Middle East.
It's amazing that you're saying that, because we usually used to hear that Israel is an island of stability in the Middle East.
Right,
How come?
Khamenei rejected Obama's offer. Obama sent a secret letter, according to the Wall Street Journal, offering to cooperate against Daesh, and the Iranian supreme leader said no. Rouhani and others would have loved that. But in terms of cooperation, Obama tried. There have been some tactical cooperation between them, but the Americans are not letting the Iranians call the shots in Iraq regarding many issues, especially when it comes to attacking Daesh in some of the areas. Because as far as
that's debatable, especially if you think about the Shiites, the Shiites in Iraq who are fighting Daesh today. The Shiite militias are supported by Iran and are helped by, for instance, American Air Force. So
sorry, that's a mistake. When it came to Tikrit, the Tikrit. The Iranian regime and the Shia militia tried to attack. They couldn't take over. So the Shia militia had to pull back. So it was the Iraqi army and the U.S. Air Force.
Yeah, but it was true in several other places. There's Anbar province, which just started yesterday. The
Americans are participating in that?
There are cases like Kobani, for instance. Okay, there are cases where there's definitely, even if it's not a direct cooperation, there are certainly cases where the two sides are benefiting from the same fight. But beyond that, there's the alliance between Israel and the United States, which is now, over the summer, is going to be highly at the focus of interest in Washington and in Jerusalem, in the sense that Netanyahu is planning to wage a campaign to try to have Senate stop the
talk about this, him going to the United States and how much it will cost Israel. But though the Israeli government has been very vocal against a deal, it is by no means alone. Across the Arab world has been mounting concerns over the closing between Iran and the West and the eventual deal. And while some say a deal will prevent an arms race, others believe it will do the exact opposite. Uri Shapira has more.
In May 2015, leaders of the Gulf countries gathered in Washington to meet with U.S. President Barack Obama. This extraordinary gesture by the American president had a clear message. The U.S. would not abandon its allies in the Gulf, even if negotiations on Iran's nuclear program ended in an agreement with Tehran.
I am reaffirming our ironclad commitment to the security of our Gulf partners. As we've declared in our joint statement, the United States is prepared to work jointly with GCC member states to deter and confront an external threat to any GCC state's territorial integrity that is inconsistent with the UN Charter.
Now that a deal on Iran's nuclear program has been reached, Gulf countries are adjusting to the new reality. A Saudi official told Reuters Tuesday that a nuclear deal with Iran will mean a happy day if it stops Iran from acquiring a nuclear arsenal, but a bad agreement would allow Tehran to wreak havoc in the region. Obama tried to ease the concerns of Iran's opponents.
That is precisely why we are taking this step. Because an Iran armed with a nuclear weapon would be far more destabilizing and far more dangerous to our friends and to the world.
Relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran have been on the collision course recently after the two countries became involved in the conflict in Yemen, a war between Tehran-backed Shiite Houthi rebels who took over major areas in the country, and opposing them, a Saudi-led coalition. Meanwhile, in Syria, President Bashar al-Assad welcomed the agreement, suggesting he expects Iran to increase its support in its fight in the Syrian civil war once the deal is implemented. Iran is one of Assad's biggest allies in the region and a supporter of the Shiite group Hezbollah, now helping Assad's forces in their battle against extremist jihadist groups like the Islamic State and the Al-Nusra Front. As it stands now, it is uncertain who the deal will strengthen and by how much. But it does seem that the balance of power in the Middle East may change a day after the deal is signed.
Okay, there is somebody else who accompanied us in all this time, is Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, Director Center of the Iranian and Arab Studies. Good evening. Good to have you back with us.
Good evening.
So, Dr. Nourizadeh, in your opinion, what do you think about the current deal that basically brought an end to the nuclear deal of the nuclear program of Iran?
For a long time, I've been saying it in your program, in other places, that the deal is done. The question is how to put it, how to choose the wording. The Iranian side, they wanted to show to their people that they win. They had a great victory. And in order to achieve that, so they were negotiating with the American, let us have, at least the benefit of winning or something like this. The American, at the end of the day, they said, okay, as long as you are signing the deal, as long as you are giving such a concession, which makes us sure that you are not going to go back to your military nuclear program, then okay, we agree. But when I read it, when I went through the pages, I realized that the Americans were very clever. They didn't give the Iranian what they wanted, even in wording.
So Dr. Nourizadeh, who won, who lost in this deal?
The Iranian people, the international community. The Iranian regime is losing. I mean, the Iranian regime, first of all, in front of the Iranian people, for 14 years saying, this nuclear program is a holy one. We would not allow anybody to touch it, that on holy hands to reach this program. But now we see they have given up almost everything. And at the end of the day, Iran from today is a different Iran. The regime lost its credibility even among its supporters.
Do you really think that the regime lost
its... there is pressure.
Do you really think that the regime actually lost its respect among the Iranian people? You don't think that Mohammad Javad Zarif and Rouhani are going to get back and basically be received in a really warm home welcoming?
No, we have quite few players. When we are talking about Rouhani and Zarif, the people deal with them in a different manner. They don't put them in the same place as they put Khamenei and Revolutionary Guards and all those commanders who are talking as, so big. They are talking about we are the greatest, strongest. Nobody can touch us. Even Mohsen Rezai a couple of nights ago said if the American attack us in 24 hours, we capture 1,000 Americans. So this sort of talking, this sort of, just pretending that they are the winner side, it's gone. The Iranian people, they are very clever people. They follow everything bit by bit.
Yes.
And they know what is in the deal. They know exactly what is in page by page.
Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, I expect you to, all this night, you have, I think, 159 pages to read and come back to me tomorrow with specific answers about what is right and what is wrong in this.
We're going to quiz you. We'll do a test.
We will do a test, a quiz about it tomorrow. Dr. Ali Nourizadeh, thank you very, very much for this. We're going out for a small break. We're still staying in this forum, but just 2 minutes and we will be back. After 18 days of marathon negotiations, and Iran and 6 world powers led by the U.S. announced a historic nuclear deal to limit Iran's nuclear capability in exchange for lifting international sanctions. Reactions to the accord pour in from the United States Congress to the UAE, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls it a historic mistake that makes the world much more dangerous and that Israel is not bound by it. And the Greek government submits tough bailout terms demanded by Europe to Parliament as the country's Syriza party debates the reforms promised in a massive bailout deal. And welcome Welcome back to the news today. We are here in a special edition, we can say, continue on the Iran nuclear deal signed today. And with me in this part is Amir Oren, defense and government analyst for Arts Daily newspaper. Good evening.
Lucy.
And also Dr. Raz Zimt of the Alliance Center for Iranian Studies. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Before we will start discussing maybe the alternative aspects of this specific deal, with me on the phone is head of Israeli Yesh Atid party, Mr. Yair Lapid. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Good evening.
So, Mr. Lapid, what is your first reaction to this, let's say, historic day and this historic deal?
Well, I don't know if you can call it historic, but you can certainly call it a dangerous deal. This is a bad deal. This is a bad deal for Israel. This endangers Israel's security, and the words security. It's a bad day for the Jews and bad day for the entire international community. I know people didn't have a chance to read through the 159 pages of the agreement. So I suggest everyone who's interested just go to clauses 74 to 78, which is the clauses that has to do with the kind of inspection this agreement allows, and this is beyond ridiculous. This says that instead of snap inspections, instead of the IAEA ability to go and inspect and see if the Iranians keep on deceiving and cheating and lying, if they want to inspect some facility, they have to make the respect in writing to Iran, and then Iran has 14 days to answer this request. And if Iran says no, and they can say no, they can offer alternative ways to verify. And then there are more 7 days of waiting. And then if the IAEA says it's not sufficient, it goes to a joint committee for another 7 days.
Mr. Lapid, it sounds like the Israeli bureaucracy, you know? It's just like, it sounds like Israel was on the table there.
I didn't think it's possible to say such thing, but it sounds worse than Israeli bureaucracy. And let me just finish. And then you have another 7 days, and then you have another 3 days for implementation. So in total, you have 24 days before the inspectors saw something, and they have to the point they have an ability to really inspect. And in the middle, they have to provide proofs to the Iranian of the kind of intelligence they have, which means they have to make sure the Iranians know what kind of intelligence is brought into the table, and therefore they can stop whatever intelligence leaks they have.
You know,
this is beyond absurd. This is ridiculous. This is dangerous. And I'm telling you, no Israeli in his right mind, and you know what, I think no American in his right mind or European in his right mind can understand how can they come to such a deal. This is a danger to the entire region, and this enables Iran to cheat and lie as they always did.
You know, Mr. Yair Lapid, I want to ask you, you know, during all these the last 18 days, we asked, where is Israel in this specific deal? Where is Israel on the map? Is Israel being taken under consideration? And, you know, after you are reading and you're saying what you're saying, I'm asking myself, for the last, 10 years, 15 years, we've been hearing this from Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu has been ruling Israel, and I'm saying ruling Israel for the last 8 years, something like that. You to correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
So how come when it was his, let's say, legacy, when it was his, I will say, his mission in life, how come at the end of the day, at the end of the hour, when it got to this specific point, we are not taken under consideration? Israel is not being taken under consideration, and Barack Obama is saying, you know what, I'm going to veto any decision that is going to happen in the Senate. So even if you are going to come to the Senate and come to try to convince me, I'm going to say what I want to say, and I'm going to pass this deal. So what did we do wrong?
Well, listen, I made it into a rule to myself that I'm not going to criticize Netanyahu and the Israeli government on international media. I'm going to do this only in Hebrew and only in local media, because I don't think it's appropriate to criticize an Israeli prime minister abroad. So you will excuse me if I will not follow up on your question. I will say one thing. The problem is not only in the United States. The problem is the United States is enhanced by the fact that the Europeans has already said, and I spent the entire day discussing this with European and American leaders, they said, listen, even if the American Congress will veto it, and then the people who oppose the agreement, there will be a 2/3 of the Congress after a presidential veto. Still, this doesn't apply to us, and we are going to lift the sanctions from Iran. This means that actually the sanctions are off the table for the near future, and therefore I'm going to do everything in my power. I spoke today with Dori Gold, the General Director of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, and I said to him, even though I'm in opposition on this, there's no coalition opposition, I'm going to be very proactive in helping you guys abroad. Still, the chances are slim, and all I can say about your original question is that you have a point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yair Lapid. Thank you very much for this conversation with us. We're hearing the people from inside Israel saying there is no opposition, there is no pro or against. We are all in this. This is a bad deal.
We may be able to fill the void that Mr. Lapid has just come up with regarding international media and criticism of
First of all, thank you for taking us under consideration that we're international media finally after 2 years.
Even intergalactical, perhaps in Pluto they can see it. But in any event, it's not unanimous. There are many people in Israel, analysts, experts, Iran watchers, America watchers, who think that this is a fairly good deal, that this is probably the optimal deal that the six powers could have gotten from Iran. And one should try and understand what has been happening here. Israel was, until today, part of the wall isolating Iran. Now Israel is being isolated by the world, including Iran, and this is out of Israel's own volition. Israel has chosen to play this part. Now, if you listened to President Rouhani, and Raz is, of course, much more of an expert on that, you heard certain terms which the Western ear is not so accustomed to hear. You heard status, respect, you heard soft words, not only the concrete terms of what Mr. Lapid just referred to, of how many days, what sort of inspection. And by the way, the non-proliferation regime is a voluntary one. Iran can simply decide to go out of it and then not abide by it. So what the Iranians wanted was a recognition of their status as a great power regionally, perhaps to their mind globally. And I think the world has gotten a good deal by the very fact that the trend is to get agreements. First Syria, a year and a half ago, and now Iran.
And Greece, let's not forget just this week also. But let's look at the deal, and let's talk about the sanctions. The sanctions, and we're talking about the missile program also, was also some kind of a breakthrough between Iran and the world powers. The sanctions, from what I'm hearing, at least from what I'm reading a little bit here, it's
8 years.
8 years. So the Iranian lost at the end of the day?
No, I
because
think
they wanted the sanctions to be relieved immediately.
No, but not concerning the missiles. I have to say the sanctions over missiles were never one of the red lines of Khamenei. I think what happened here is that they just used the opportunity, as they saw the Russians are perhaps more eager than the Iranians to have the sanctions lifted because they want to sell weapons to Iran. So 8 years is fine. I think they didn't even mean that before. This is not when they meant sanctions against Iran. Even Khamenei knew that he means economic sanctions. This is the thing which are the main problem for Iran.
So if we're talking about economic sanctions, the economic sanctions are, it's like the West opened its doors to Iran and told Iran with this deal, welcome, we are going hand in hand together to a really, really happy ever after future.
Well, first of all, it's conditional. It has to wait until December, until the report of the IEA. And I think that there will be some opposition within Iran from the ideological radical right, because they know that the agreement, the deal, is not talking about immediate lifting of all sanctions, which is quite problematic because Khamenei demanded that. Now, it is right that the signing of the agreement will be only afterwards, but this is something which will be very difficult to persuade.
From a security point of view, a flourishing Iranian economy is an asset, because if the Iranians have more to lose, they will not risk Israel or the West finding out that they have been covertly trying to go the nuclear route again, and this will have an added deterrent effect.
I just want to join to this conversation. From Jerusalem is Ghanem Nusaybe, founder of Cornerstone Global Associate, which does strategy and policy consulting for countries in the Middle East. Good evening, Ghanem. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Good evening to you all.
So, Ghanem, let's try to look at it from another perspective of the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia, who are not happy at all, like Israel, with this deal.
They're not happy. They're not happy for different reasons, and they're not happy for different reasons than why Israel is not happy for that. And the Arab position itself is not. There's a sort of various degrees of happiness or unhappiness about the deal. On one side of the spectrum, Oman, that is the closest of the GCC to Iran in terms of politics and trade, and then you've got countries like Bahrain, which obviously accuses Iran and has very good reasons to accuse Iran of interfering in its own internal affairs, and same with Saudi, and so yes, there is unhappiness, there is a lot of unease. But there is also that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ghanem Nusaybe. We have some difficulties hearing you. We will try to get back to you again. I want to talk about the Arab world. I want to take this to this path because Ghanem started saying here something that the interests of Israel are totally different than the interest of the Arab world and Saudi Arabia. But if we will combine this interest with this interest, this can create a beautiful friendship.
Yes, because you heard President Obama mention both Israel and the Gulf countries in an even-handed way as two factors in need of reassurance. He also went on to supply this reassurance regarding the security of Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the other Gulf countries, because obviously each country is sovereign. It is going to act according to its interests, and if Israeli intelligence or Saudi intelligence or any other country's intelligence in the region finds out that the Iranians have lied and cheated, and by the way, Lapid said that they lied and cheated up to now. They did not. Ever since this joint plan of action has been enforced since late 2013, they have adhered to the word and the spirit of the agreement, and they are probably going to do it now out of their own interest, not because they are righteous. But if they are not, obviously Israel and Saudi Arabia will act very fast. So Obama is now going to play a role in giving Israel and the Gulf states more weapons, more security guarantees.
Exactly in this point, isn't it? This is exactly what is going to happen. Okay, you are really worried about the fact that Iran is going to be nuclear or is lying and cheating and whatever. Okay, we will provide you more weapon. We will give you more money. We will give you more defense systems that you will be able to defend yourselves.
I said it before and I'll say it again. The problems Iran has with its involvement in the region is not just about economy. They've been trying to send supply to Yemen for 2 months without any success, because the Saudis are not letting them get into Yemen. They are trying to send weapons to the West Bank. Supreme Leader Khamenei stated a year ago after the operation in Gaza.
This is not relaxing me what you're saying right now, because if the sanctions will be lifted and if everything will be, if the world is opening to Iran like we're seeing in this deal, so all the weapon will get to Yemen, will get to Hamas, will get...
I don't think so, because the Saudi Arabia will still be there and prevent Iran from delivering weapons to Yemen. The Shiites in Iraq will still be suspicious of the Iranians because they are Iranians and not Arabs. The ISIS will still be strong in Syria and defeat Iranian soldiers who are killed even in the last few days, not because they don't have money. Now, yes, they will have more money to give to Assad and to Iraq, but I don't think this is the main obstacle to Iranian involvement in the region.
Why I'm asking this, because basically what the Americans just said today, say today, is that, you know what, we will provide you more arms, we will provide you more weapon, just continue killing yourselves, just not with a nuclear weapon.
Well, there is a reason for the distinction between weapons of mass destruction and conventional weapons, because the conventional weapons, and people have been fighting each other since Cain and Abel. Perhaps it was unilateral in that case, but after that they fought each other with sticks and stones, and now with airplanes, submarines, what have you. But nuclear bombs, even more than chemical bombs and biological and what have you, nuclear bombs are of a different order. And this is the top floor of international relations. If the region is still going to see conflicts and competitions, but not with weapons of mass destruction, it's manageable, it's controllable. And there is a huge difference between even terrorism and nuclear weapons.
The Iranian challenge has many dimensions. Nuclear, its involvement in terrorism, human rights. We can't put everything into this agreement. This agreement was aimed to prevent the nuclearization of Iran. It didn't it wasn't aimed to prevent Iran from being involved in Iraq or Syria.
Yeah, I don't think that Barack Obama
And we have to see whether
intended
Rouhani is the Iranian Gorbachev, and perhaps we are going to see a transformation of the entire region.
I don't think that Barack Obama intended to bring peace all over the world, or a global peace on us. But gentlemen, thank you very, very much for relaxing me a little bit. And to some other deal happening in not here, actually, in Europe, and maybe making the Europeans worry after a bailout deal struck Monday to help save crisis hit Greece. The hard work is still only just the beginning. Lawmakers from Greece's ruling Syriza party and their allies are debating whether to back sweeping reforms promised to meet the terms of the deal, and the Prime Minister has less than 48 hours to pass needed measures. But what are the needed measures that we're talking about? Ayman Siksik explains.
The day after Greece's last-ditch bailout deal, more information is emerging on what's being called a punishing deal for Athens. Critics say Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras threw in the towel and accepted a deal he had previously refused. So what does the Greece deal include? The immediate steps are reforming Greece's value-added tax system and its national statistics agency so that fiscal data is reliable. Also, creating an independent fiscal authority to reduce spending. Long-term reforms, though, include reforms to the pension system hit by previous bailouts, market reforms on sales of Sunday shopping, sales periods, and business ownership, and strengthening the financial sector. These reforms also include privatization, one of the most contentious issues in the settlement. 50 billion euro of assets for privatization will be put in a fund in Athens under European supervision. 25 billion euro of that amount will go towards recapitalizing Greek banks. But Eurozone leaders are not settling for financial reforms. One troublesome demand in the bailout deal has to do with appointments to the Greek government. Eurozone leaders demand that Greece depoliticize the administration under EU monitoring, a step critics say is designed to remove Syriza officials from their positions. The same trend is also apparent in reforms to the law system in Greece. Eurozone leaders want a reversal of laws by the Syriza government that counter earlier bailout arrangements. So why was all this worth it for Tsipras? The answer is in the numbers. The official bailout size will likely range between 82 and 86 billion euro. Finance ministers will consider urgent financing needs to meet debt payments of 7 billion euro by July 20th. To sweeten the deal, Eurozone ministers will consider longer grace and payment periods, but haircuts and write-offs of debt are ruled out. And what if Greece ends up in hot water again? The European Commission is ready to lend Greece €35 billion until 2020 to boost jobs and growth. And the additional aid will be necessary. In a confidential analysis sent to Eurozone leaders late Monday, the International Monetary Fund concluded that Greece will need debt relief far beyond initial estimates. As the details of the deal, Greece's third so far, become clearer, international economists are saying that if the definition of insanity is indeed doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, the leaders of Europe and Greece are insane.
Yes, it's the week of the deals, we call it here in I24 News. And with me right now is journalist Lucy Aharish in Athens. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Good to be with you.
So, Natalie, you know, if we are trying to connect what is happening between Iran and Greece, of course, one took the headlines off the other and, like, did it each and every time, each and every week in a different matter. But if we will look at the economic aspects, of course, the Iranian people are interested about what is happening in Iran and what will happen about the sanctions, the lifting of the sanctions from Iran. But the Greek people are really worried because it ends up that Tsipras is not able to negotiate like the Iranians.
No, because you can say that again. I mean, Tsipras definitely cannot negotiate like the Iranians. Perhaps he should look into ways he can learn some lessons. I mean, it's an interesting, way to put that. But Lucy, you know, the sad part of it is that you'd think that the Europeans would want to see their money back, right? And by implementing measures, the ultimate aim, you would hope, was for, you know, somehow the economy here to grow so the government can actually make some cash from the revenues, and so they can eventually, at some point in the future, repay the creditors. But instead, what we see is this package, which looks extremely recessionary, you know, is going to squeeze dry the families here. They're not going to be able to pay much of their taxes. It's actually even forcing many businesses to tax evade. So you kind of wonder if these measures are punitive or, you know, there to try and help the economy rebound at some point in the near decade.
It's exactly, and Natalie, I'm trying to understand, because it seems with what we're reading and what we're understanding from this specific deal is that I'm not going to see any, let's say, bright light at the end of the tunnel for Greece in the next, what, decade, in the next 20 years? How they are going to get out of this specific really horrible economic situation?
I wish I could answer that, Lucy. You know, I'm not an economist. I've been living in Greece for the past 5 years. I've seen the Greek crisis from up close. I've seen the way businesses are trying to cope, but it's all extremely difficult for them. And, you know, speaking to ordinary businesses here in Greece, they're like, you know, we're trying to survive as it is, but with increases in taxation here, we're forced to tax evade, you know, and they're being extremely honest about it. Families here, the most vulnerable, are going to be hit very hard. It's kind of worrying, and this is a society that has largely survived because of the close family ties.
Yes. Natalie Aharish, always a pleasure talking with you, and I believe that we will talk very soon again. Thank you very much for this. Dr. Esther Lupatin is here with us here in the studios. Thank you very, very much for coming. You said it. You just said it just before we started talking. The big winner in this, if we are calling today winners and losers, the big winner.
I would say there is one winner and many losers.
One winner. Who's the winner?
The winner is actually Germany. It's very clear that Germany got their way. I mean, like, they didn't want to compromise on the haircut. No haircut for the Greeks. They will have to pay the full amount of their debt, of the money that they owe. The second thing is that there will be, I mean, like, according to what the Eurozone leader said, that there's going to reschedule the payments, but there's not going to be a haircut. The second thing is that they will still have to implement a series of major austerity measures, you know, in Greece. So it's very clear that the Germans got exactly what they wanted. On the other hand, like the French actually lost here, which says something about the division of power in the European Union, because we would like to believe that, you know, the French are as powerful as the Germans, but this is not the case.
You know, if we will look at it from the social point of view, of course, Angela Merkel just came down as the strongest woman, maybe, I think, in the world by solving this crisis, or maybe not solving this crisis, just taking it back to the beginning and saying, this is the situation, I'm just coming out of it much stronger. And if we're looking at it from a different perspective, in a social point of view, how can the Syriza party actually survive after such a loss? After such, you know, this is the pride of the Greek people. You promised us something, you send us to do some referendum, you asked us to decide. At the end of the day, you promised and you failed.
Yeah, I think unfortunately for the Greeks, I mean, like, they lost it. I mean, like, and I think that what's going to happen now, they will really need a miracle in order to recover, you know, economically, because it's very clear, you know, what he was saying, you know, it's serious, like, the last 5 years, you know, we had implemented a series of austerity measures, it didn't work out. I don't think, you know, continue with austerity measures will help the Greek economy eventually, and without elimination or reduction of the debt, I think it's going to be very hard for them, and eventually they will need a miracle or to sell a lot of Greek olives or Greek oil. So
one word before we're finishing this part about this is the week of the EU.
It is the week of the EU. I mean, like, you know, it's definitely, like, I think the EU showed that they're capable of finding a solution or a compromise. But I think one thing that we have to remember is that, you know, like, the idea behind the European integration was to create a solidarity, a European identity. So the EU was able to create a common passport, you know, a free movement of persons, but they were not able to create a solidarity. And the message is here is, like, in a moment of crisis, there is no one there for you to help you out, which is a very sad message.
Dr. Esther Lopatin, always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much for this. And for all the latest, including analysis and live updates, go to i24news.tv, Arabic, French, and English. We're going out for a break, an update from our news desk, and then we will be back. Don't go anywhere for the third part. Welcome back to the news today. On July 14th, 2011, a few Israeli students set up a small tent city in the center of Tel Aviv to protest the high cost of living in Israel. This small demonstration evolved into the largest social protest in the history of Israel. In its peak, an estimated 400,000 people marched all around Israel against the high prices that Israel citizens pay for basic needs. The protest also changed the political arena. Until then, election campaigns focused on security matters, but since the 14th of July, social issues got into the center stage. But was there any effect on the life of Israeli citizens? To talk about this, here with me in the studio, joining me is Gali Freund, who campaigns against monopoly on natural gas in Israel. Good evening.
Good evening.
And also Dr. Professor of Political Science, Dr. Hani Zubaydah.
Hi, Lucy. How are you?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So, you know, I'm looking at this 4 years after. I'm trying to understand if I'm paying less on every basic needs. I know. Just let me just put it to our viewers, because our viewers don't know that. We're not paying nothing less. We're even paying more. No, paying more on the cost of living, paying more on our houses price, the houses pricing, paying more on milk, on all the basic needs that we are having here in Israel. So how come 400,000 people marching on the streets of Israel didn't help change anything?
Well, that's not accurate. First of all, yes, there's been a big social movement. Thing is that not necessarily everyone knew exactly how to change things. We were it was the first time in which people actually stood up and said something's wrong and we have to change it. But I'm not sure that everyone knew exactly how. Since then, hundreds of different organizations stood up, started saying exactly what was wrong. Like right now, Green Course is the organization in which I'm volunteering, is manifesting against the natural gas monopoly over our natural resources.
You know, saying yes, putting some efforts, yes, but changing, no.
Well, of course not, because people did not go to the right course of action.
Which means?
Public policy. You have to change public policy. If you cannot change public policy, you will not be able to change the system which works, which coordinates prices. In Israel, usually what we see, and that's commonly known, we have monopolies almost over everything in life: electricity, gas, water, housing. The housing prices are set primarily by the government because the government allocates land, and it tries to allocate land in the highest price possible. And as a result, the housing prices are high. Now we have the new Secretary of Treasury, Mr. Kahlon from the Kulanu party, which said, I will lower the prices down. And after a few months, the only thing he said is, please stop buying second and third apartments. No, don't say that. What you have to do is you have to open the market completely and start building as many apartments as can. By the way, last month was the highest month of mortgages rates in Israel.
I'm trying to understand how come our salaries are still the same, our income is still the same, and the prices only went higher and higher. It's something that I don't understand. Yes, we are going and yelling on the streets. Yes, the social agenda is really important now in the political arena, in the election campaigns. But nobody really cares. Nobody really cares, and I'm asking not only because I swear, I know why you're looking at me like that, but nobody really cares because I think that it got to do with us Israelis, that we are accepting everything because we're saying, you know what, that's life. I went, I protested, and nothing happened, so I will continue paying.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I'm actually agreeing with you because we have to change the way that we do things. The thing is that right now, our manifestations are not the only thing that moves the decision making in Israel. As for Monday, a few weeks ago, Netanyahu tried to pass a law that says that actually you can pass the entire Israeli democracy and say, well, you know what, let's just agree with the gas companies and everything will be good, even though there are officials in our government that say that it's a really bad deal for Israel. And thanks to a lot of volunteers and a lot of people on social media that were actually sending hundreds and thousands of text messages and of emails to our elected. And thanks to also people coming to the Knesset members and talking to them, telling them this is a really, really bad deal for Israel. Thanks to all those matters that we have sorry. We were able to stop that thing, that non-democratic process. So and things are changing.
Maybe things are changing. Maybe people, Benjamin Netanyahu, thinking that he has the ability to pass every single law that he wants, to pass the gas deal with nobody saying anything. We just sat here and we talked about it, that he didn't believe that this is the mess that he's going to get into.
One person. Aryeh Deri.
Okay.
That's the person who stopped the deal, guys. With all due respect to all the volunteers, with all due respect to all the text messagings, with all due respect to everything. One person, the kid who stuck his finger in the dam. Now there's another thing here. People do mistake the democratic process. People think that by protesting, and you've said that, well, I went out and I protested. No, that's not the end of it. At the end of the process, after you protest, you need to change your voting pattern. But the Israeli people do not change their voting pattern.
How come the people who are suffering the most from the Benjamin Netanyahu government all in the last 8 years, they are the people who are voting each and every time for the same government. And this time even a government that is going more to the right and making their lives even more miserable than they already are. So how come we're not changing the voting
I think
patterns?
that voting is one thing, but democracy stands on more than just voting every 4 years. It's much more than that. It's much more I don't know, much more interesting to see how people understand much better today than they understood 4 years ago what was wrong, how to change it. Right now, we're seeing this monopoly, this thing that is not even democratic. They had, thanks to the actions that we took, we now know exactly what our government was supposed to sign. And thing is that everything that says there is completely, I don't know, it has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with protecting our people. Nothing to do with...
I'm trying to think, and I'm trying to think about what is happening in the last few days. And I don't think that our situation is a lot different, because I'm thinking about the Iranian people who, at the end of the day, protested for a long time about their bad economic situation, about the sanction and everything. Nothing is really helping the Iranians, because at the end of the day, the one who's calling the shots is the Ayatollah. At the other side, we're seeing the Greeks. They went to a referendum. They said no to austerity. They chose the social party, and it didn't help them because it brought on their heads even bigger problems. And we're seeing in Israel the same. You know what? Whether it's right, whether it's left, it's the same deal.
In the 21st century, it began in the 20th century. After the Industrial Revolution, what happened is that people had to work long days in order to survive, and the days got longer and their free time is really shortened. People are not involved in the process. You were saying that we are earning the same. We're not earning the same. Maybe nominally we're earning the same, but if you consider the proportion of our salary is shrinking at a very rapid pace. People have to get up at 6 a.m., go out for work, and they come back at 8 p.m. When they get back home, they don't have time to protest. They don't have time to see politics. They don't have time to get
take
involved.
Care of their children.
Of course. And now what we're seeing is the first generation lacks any political savviness. The second generation is engulfed in the same lack of political savviness, and it gets worse and worse. Eventually, people are just trying to survive. I think one of the most important aspects is the lack of labor unions, good labor unions. The second aspect is the corruption that is within these governments. Greece, Iran, and Israel, with all due respect, are corrupted system politically and administratively. And the third aspect is, and I'm trying to be mild here, inadequate politicians. People that are being elected by the people and then eventually do not do the thing that they were elected for. And that's a major problem.
Maybe the problem is with our education. Maybe what we need to do is to educate the people to know much more than what they know already.
That's actually a part of the thing that we're doing right now. We're coming to people's homes and explaining to them, because we understand that the gas situation is very complicated. People don't really understand. What is it about? Is it a cooking gas? Is it who is involved? What's going on? What happened? Who's right? Who's wrong? We're trying to clear things out, first of all. And second of all, we want to point out that there are foreign interests in this entire matter. We have an American company who's taking out the gas, and we're not trying to say if it's okay, if it's wrong, if it's right. It's not ours to decide who will take out the gas. We just want to say what and how is it supposed to be.
Yes. I want to thank you both for coming to the studio. It was a great pleasure, and 4 years after, the situation doesn't seem any better. But it's okay. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And just see with me this, how to one of the most highly anticipated books ever, the sequel to Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, Go Set a Watchman, is the most pre-ordered book on Amazon since the final installment of Harry Potter. But fans are already outraged to learn their hero has a dark side. ABC has more.
In our courts, all men are created equal.
On Tuesday, readers will open Go Set a Watchman and meet a different, older, and yes, racist Atticus. In the new book, which takes place 20 years after Harper Lee's American classic To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus reportedly has attended a Ku Klux Klan meeting and questions the benefits of desegregation.
There's a lot of ugly things in this world, son.
Lee actually wrote Watchmen before Mockingbird, which has led to questions of whether the 89-year-old author, who hasn't spoken publicly since the early 60s about her acclaimed novel, ever wanted this one published. But HarperCollins says Lee requested the book be published as written with no editorial intervention. GMA obtaining this exclusive photo of Lee receiving the first published copy of Watchmen. Despite the controversy, the book already a hit.
This is the literary event of the decade, if not more. We had absolutely no reason to expect this was ever coming.
Smashing pre-sale records at libraries and stores, including online retailer Amazon. Academy Award-winning actress Reese Witherspoon lending her voice to the audiobook.
It's awful hot up here, said Dill.
Fans of her first book are already sounding off on social media, tweeting, "Any book where Atticus Finch is a bad guy is not a book I want to read." And Atticus Finch is revealed as a racist in new book, Hero No More.
In the name of God.
But maybe the hero who taught us every man is equal is now teaching us a new lesson. No man is perfect.
And with me right now to understand a little bit about what is all the fuss about, correspondent and author Ayman Siksik joining me to discuss this and learn more. Hi.
Hi, Lucy. Good evening.
How are you?
I am good.
Do you want to explain to me what is the big buzz about this?
Well, it's a huge literary event. People are saying this is the literary event of the decade, if not the year. So she hasn't published another novel since To Kill a Mockingbird, and it's been hugely anticipated and expected. No one knew that there was another book in her storage anyway. And it turns out that there's a real question here. Is it really her second novel or her first? We can't really tell, because even though it's published now, after To Kill a Mockingbird, Ghost of a Watchman was actually written before it. And yes, it was written as the first draft to Kill a Mockingbird. And to make things more complicated, it takes place after the setting of To Kill a Mockingbird.
Can you tell to our viewers who who haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird what the scenario is?
Well, Harper Lee's classic novel is about an African-American man wrongfully accused of murder in the U.S. in the 60s, and then a defense attorney, an American white defense attorney, comes to his rescue. And throughout the course of the court case, we learn about interracial relations in the U.S. And it teaches Americans about themselves at that time, but more important than that, it teaches us about ourselves as human beings.
You know, it comes like at a perfect timing.
It comes at a perfect timing. Of course, racial tension in the U.S. now is maybe higher than ever. Eric Garner actually is in the news again today. It's less than a year now since he was killed in confrontation with police officers. And today, the city of New York, where he was killed, ruled in a settlement in his family's favor, $5.9 million.
So what kind of a dark side are everyone is talking about?
Well, in this Ghost of a Watchman, this new novel, which we can't say if it's the second or the first, the hero of the first one who comes to the rescue of the black man who was wrongfully accused, here he attends a Ku Klux Klan meeting, and we find racist undertones and overtones in his behavior. So it's really the toppling of idols. And
so basically the idol is not, or the protagonist is not that charming as they thought?
He's not perfect as we thought, and this is something that's very characteristic to literature of that time. It was an idealist view of anti-racist movement, and here we see something completely different.
Ayman Siksik, thank you very much for this.
Thank you,
we
Lucy.
need to go and read this book, definitely. And for all the latest, including analysis and live updates, go to www.i24news.tv. And that's it for tonight. Tomorrow we will be here again at the same time, same place from the Jaffa Port, Israel. Have peace. Have a safe nuclear night.